Hello and welcome to Business Point on Global Television, where we x-ray Nigeria's economy, talk about government policies, tech, and innovation. I'm Queen Agaba. And today on the program, we would be dissecting the recent hike in electricity tariff and the adverse effect for Nigerians. Now, I'll be joined by my guest, who is an economic analyst, David Irabo, to talk about the hike in electricity tariff. But before then, let me tell you that the government announced a hike in electricity tariff at a press briefing in Abuja by NEC, adding that those affected will pay 225 naira per kilowatt hour, up from the previous rate of 68 naira per kilowatt hour, representing about 240% increase. The government stated that the decision took effect on April 3rd, 2024. My guest, David Arabo, good morning for joining me on the program.
Good morning, Quinn. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Like I earlier established, I'm sure that I want to know if you were affected by this tariff, and how has consumers been affected by the higher electricity tariffs?
Okay. I think I would say I would be surprised if there's no one in the country who's actually not going through or not suffering from that incredible hike at such a short period of time. You could sense the frustration everywhere. As you can see, the Nigeria Labour Congress and other private sectors not in agreement with our government, concerning the hike. Sincerely, personally, for me, I think it's not a good one. As a business owner and entrepreneur, and I can also speak for a number of people out there who are into SMEs and other entrepreneurial trade. You can see that you can tell that power supply or electricity is one major thing that we can bank on, and if the government is insisting that they want to increase the tariff, then you can tell that they are really going to kill a lot of things in the country. So for me, I think it's not a good one. It's not a good one. They have to look into it. There has to be a way they can come to a compromise between the NLC and the governments.
Mm. Now, the NLC have, termed this increase by the federal government as wickedness and, inhuman, and they're threatening to go on a strike, if something is not done about it. I'm sure on your end that is a step in the right direction, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a step in the right direction, And on the other hand, I would say yes, because of course the NLC stands for, the fight for the good of the people, which we know that is very key in such a country where we find ourselves. But the question still remains: would the government bend to the demands of the NLC? Because we know that over the years one can't count or bank on uh, the 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 uh, the credibility of the NLC. Sorry to say, because we've seen over the years that when we have such an issue, they don't push as much as they could, and over the years, the people don't believe or have confidence in the NLC anymore. So let's see how this goes, and let's see how far they can fight this with the government. Because seriously, this thing has to be resolved. It has to be resolved. I was speaking to a friend of mine yesterday about the increment, and you could see that from every point of view, it is not doing us any good. It is not doing us any good. We're already suffering, because come to think of it, where in the country do you have people having power supply for 22 hours or 20 hours like the government is suggesting? So they are not being factual or realistic with what they are saying. But let's just see how it goes with the NLC fighting, these issues.
Mm. No, 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 to businesses, because I understand also that you're an entrepreneur and you have various businesses and enterprises. Now let's talk about the impact, short term, long term, so far even before the increase in electricity tariff and moving on the increase? How has it been like? What are the differences? Because we learn and we speak to a lot of businesses and entrepreneurs as well. You'd be surprised to know that some people are downsizing and even putting a pause to their businesses. So let me in on how this tariff has impacted businesses and industries in Nigeria.
Okay, sorry, please, can you come again? I didn't get that.
Okay.
The last point you mentioned.
Let me in on how this tariff has, impacted businesses and industries in Nigeria, because I'm well aware that there are some businesses that are closing down. So I want to know, what was it like? A lot of people have been complaining about the electricity not being sustainable even before the increase in tariff, this recent increase. We've had issues of consistency, businesses not doing so well because of how inconsistent power supply has been. And so I want to know, it's more like a comparison of before and now, and also how this recent increase has affected businesses and industries in Nigeria.
Queen, the truth is, before now, yeah, like you said, a lot of businesses were affected, because what is a country without a stable power supply? What is an economy without a stable power supply? Because everything hinges on consistent and a stable power supply for me. Whether you're an entrepreneur or you are a corporate body or you work in a no matter the scale or the level you are in those country, you know that having stable supply is very fundamental. Before now, it was hell, you know, because one of the issues people always had is not just the increment, but how sustainable or how dependable is this power supply? Can we have 18 hours power supply without interruption? Can we have 17 hours power supply without interruption? If you give us consistent power supplies and you increase the tariff, per time, I don't think you have the kind of issues, you have the kind of arguments and complaints you're having now. But when you increase these things and people don't get stable power supply, that's where the problem lies. That's where the problem lies. I was speaking to a friend of mine before the increment. He's a fashion designer, a well-known fashion designer. And he told me that he spends nothing less than 45,000 naira every week for generator, every week for fuel. You can imagine how worrisome that is. You still have your staff to look after. You still have the cost of production in the market, and you're battling with fuel. And now we're looking at the increment again in tariff. So we can't tell the damages, or we don't know the amount of damage it's going to cause if the federal government don't look into this issue, because we're already suffering. We're already suffering. A sibling of mine, a brother of mine who just came back from Ghana, was telling me just 3 days ago when he arrived that he has been in Nigeria for over 6 months. So when he went back to Ghana, because that's where he resides, and the landlord over there told him that you won't believe that ever since you left for the past 6 months up until now, there has not been any breakage in the power supply. I was like, wow, there's not been any blackouts for any reason. And I said, can you imagine? And yet we pride ourselves as the giant of Africa, one of the biggest in the country when it comes to business and entrepreneurship, and we can give and guarantee people stable power supply, even for 7 or 8 hours. I tell you, we're going to lose a lot of businesses if these things is not reversed. A lot of businesses are on the line. You can't imagine how many businesses, that were shut down because of unstable power supply. How much more when we go into these increments? The percentage is, in fact, my God, 225% increment. That's killing, my dear. That's killing. I don't know what the federal government is thinking. Yes, I know they are trying to fight for the whole subsidy thing, because the federal government say that they are subsidizing a whole lot, But you have to make this thing see, to the average person, they don't see what the federal government is doing, and the only thing that we are banking on, or we are working with to help us with, you want to take it off our hands. No, it's going to be crazy if they continue with these increments. It's gonna be crazy.
This goes now that this increase in tariff, the proposed plans to ensure that we move to ban A, that is steady power supply, hopefully in 2027, and that people move from just having power supply to at least having from having inconsistent power supply to having power supply for at least 20 hours. I mean, this is 2024, but let me know your take that we're still discussing power and steady power supply. Do you think that this increase in electricity tariffs is expected to lead to improved service delivery and reliability in the electricity sector? Why I'm asking this is because we've had promises of, better power supply for a while now. We hear of, even back then in 2015, 2020 agenda, which includes steady power supply by 2020, and this is 2024. And we're being told that we're moving consumers of electricity to the band A, sites where we would have at least 20 hours of steady electricity supply. What are your takes? Is this tariff expected to lead us to better electricity sector?
Um, Queen, sincerely, sometimes when we hear things like this and we begin to wonder, how long are we going to, how long are we going to be driven, you know, by people who just come out there and say what they like, believing that we're just going to buy everything they've said and just move on. This is the 21st century. A lot of things have moved beyond where we are now. We've been hearing this better and stable power supply for the past only God knows how long. Ever since I was a baby growing up until now, we've always heard that. In fact, that's actually been one of their major, propaganda. Whenever there's an election, every government tends to promise you about stable power supply. We've been fighting, power supply for only God knows how long. So if you ask me, what is the future, or will this increment in tariff lead to a stable power supply like they've promised? My guess is, well, we don't know. We are not sure, because there's never been anything to give us that sense of hope or a glimmer of hope to suggest that, okay, this government did this other government can advance or can further take us, higher when it comes to stable power supply. But I'm sorry to say, they have failed over the years. So how do you want people to believe, such? You can see that even the NLC keeps saying that. You say there is a band A, consumer that are enjoying 20% or 20 hours power supply. And the NLC is asking that, where in this country do you have people who are consistently enjoy 20 hours power supply? So some of these things they say are not realistic. They are not realistic. So for me, I don't see it happening. So how are they going to do it? I don't know, but I don't think that increasing the tariff would actually increase the number of hours and have a stable and a consistent power supply. For me, I don't think it's happening anytime soon. I don't
Okay,
think it's happening.
I'm just going to ask you this quick question. In your opinion, what should have been done, or what the federal government and DISCOs as well as power agencies should have done for better increased electricity conditions in the country? And now let's also look at how the increased electricity tariffs in Nigeria compares to those in other countries in the region, or globally. Let's compare tariffs and tell me what better way or what approach should have been taken as regards power and electricity in Nigeria.
Queen, that's a very it's a good question because as of yesterday, I was discussing with a business client of mine about how we need to we don't have structures yet. I think that's one of the fundamentals we are fighting with. When we are trying to do something great, do something big, you have saboteurs everywhere who, for their own personal interest, are not allowing structures to take place. See, Nigerians are hardworking and entrepreneurial in spirit. We are people who are vibrant. Wherever we go, you see us, setting the pace and doing great and enormous things for ourselves. All we need as a people, all we need as Nigerians is just structure. Just set the structures there for us, and we are good to go. We are good to go. By see, it's so painful and alarming that up until now we're still battling with the basics. We're still battling with the fundamentals, like steady power supply. It shouldn't be something heard of. When you go to developed countries or developing countries, these are not things they're battling with, because of course these are things that are ought to have been settled before now. So for me, one thing I would say is we have to go back to fixing our structures, fixing our regulatory bodies to ensure that not only do we come up with new laws, new policies, we make sure that these things are maintained, and we ensure that there are no saboteurs that are trying to divert or corner these things because of their own selfish interests. Because for example, as an entrepreneur, or you have someone who major business is bringing in generator into the country, and you're promising that you're gonna give 22 hours or 20 hours power supply. So what will happen to the man there whose business, or to those of them whose business are into solar panels, generators, and the rest? I don't know if you understand. How do you put them into your own, to ensure that, okay, when we promise 22 hours power supply or 20 hours power supply, these people are not out of business, they are not on the streets, because of course they have invested millions and billions into those businesses. So see, the government has to look at these things from a 360 angle, not just from the angle that, okay, we promise you power supply, because that is why a lot of us believe it's still unrealistic, because we have major drivers of this economy that are looking into the fact that, hey, we in fact there needs not to be a consistent power supply, because if we go into that, our businesses are going to die. So you have to look at it from a holistic angle. While you're trying to fix the power supply, how do we make sure that those people also who are bringing in this major, because it's a major business now in the country, how do we put them into consideration also? So it's a long road from here. It's a long road, I would confess, but we can get there. We can get there. From what I said, we have to fix back. We have to bring back our structures. We have to fix back these things, our regulatory bodies. So not only are you bringing up structures, not only are you promising or you're bringing up policies that will ensure the advancement of the country, but we have to see that these bodies are working. They are working, or else, while you're doing something good on one hand, you have saboteurs and you have people who are making sure that whatever you're doing, does not yield to the good of the people. So that's
Like you
that's all,
said.
all I would say. We have to fix our structures.
And now, let's. I quite understand, like you've established, that it's a long road, but hopefully we get to the very tail of it in fixing Nigeria's electricity sector. But now let's talk about solar panels and you know other avenues. Let's look at other ways we can mitigate this. Do you think this is an opportunity for us to go green, embrace solar energy? And as regards solar, how prepared is Nigeria, the market? Let's talk about solar for a bit.
One of the concerns for me as a citizen of this country is, we don't have. I'm trying to manage my words so I don't go straight out to to either insult the government, but we need forward thinking leaders. Forward thinking leaders, people and these are people who travel every now and then to international communities to see how things are being done. And the truth is, we are not far away from these things. We're not far away from this thing where I was speaking to a pastor friend of mine recently whose dad traveled, to America for medical assistance. And the question we keep asking ourselves is, we can bring these experts into the country. How much are these machines that we can't get them? and have experts from overseas come to this country, and they make sure that these things are being, are being implemented. Why are we having people go over there? Of course, you know how much we spend in dollars just to ensure that our medical, we fix our medical issues. Same thing with electricity. Having solar panel and this other, avenue of getting electricity is not far fetched, sincerely. But do you think we are ready? Are we ready as a people to start thinking in that direction? Are we ready as a country to start thinking in that direction where we're still struggling for the basics, like I said? When you're struggling for the basics, how do you start thinking in that light? How do you start thinking in that realm? Is it possible? Yes, it is. But do we have what it takes to see it come into light, to see it come into reality? It's going to take a whole lot of years, sincerely. It's going to take a whole lot of years. Some other countries that you can see in the automobile and other industries where they're looking at not having drivers, drive your
Mm.
cars. You have cars driving on their own. All you have to do is just, put in the algorithm to where you're going to, and you see yourself there, in a space of how many minutes or hours. So these are ways we ought to be thinking. So, like I said, structures have to be put in place if these things are ever going to come into light. So it's possible. It's possible. But for me, I don't know how soon that's going to be. If it's going to be in our own lifetime, but let's just hope and believe that things are going to keep getting better, and we have people there in government who can fight, you know, tooth and nail to see that these things are well implemented.
Many thanks, David Arabo. It's an absolute delight to have you on the program talk about the increase in electricity tariff. Do have a nice day ahead.
Thank you very much, Queen. Thank you for having me. Thank you. Have a great day, you too.
Thank you. Now we're just going to take a quick break, and when we return, we'll take a look at the world of business. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Many thanks for staying with us. Now, in business, the Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Dele Alake, has expressed the commitment of the federal government to support mining companies that place premium on local content in their operations. speaking during a site tour of the Segilola Resources Operating Limited, an indigenous gold mining company located within Imogbara, Ikberindo, Odo-Ijesha, Osun State, the minister lauded the extensive work that has gone into the facility, expressing delight that over 95% of its staff are Nigerians, urging other operators to take a cue from them. Samuel Odi has details.
The Minister of Solid Mineral Development urged the mining companies to emulate the international best practice of the Segilola Gold Project to develop the sector. Commending high Nigerian component of the project, Alakia remarked that the firm has applied local content in its procurement and employment policies. The minister praised the company's tenacity of purpose and efficient method deployed to push through with its vision despite daunting challenges at inception.
Harmonious relationships bring fertile and robust engagements, which lead to safer, saner, peaceful, free and unfettered operating environment, which will lead to your maximizing your output, your production, and invariably your profit. And it's a symbiotic relationship because the host communities will also stand to gain. And the gains, the samples of these gains I have seen myself here today, and it's very, very commendable. There are so many mining companies who also sign community development agreements, but fall short in delivery. You have, in fact, overshot the bounds of delivery.
Alake stressed that the focus has been to redirect local and international attention to the mining sector. He revealed that the implementation of the 7-point agenda is to reposition the mining sector, emphasizing the imperative of humorous relationship with the host communities. Alake lauded SROL for overshooting its community development target, urging mining companies across the country to follow suit to ensure safer, unfiltered operating environment which will accumulate in maximum benefactors for both operators and the host community and government.
With the focus of your vision as a company, with the exemplary knowledge that you have displayed in putting in place this very laudable project here, and with the tenacity of your courage in surmounting institutional, corporate, individual, communal obstacles and challenges along your way.
In his remark, the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Segilola Resource, Segun Lawson, stated that the company is a world-class project powered by Nigerians, appealing for support from the federal government to enable its scale-up and contribute better to the economy of the country.
First stage was proving it up, the gold resource. Then after proving it, we were taking it to a preliminary feasibility study. That was in October 2017. After the preliminary feasibility study, we took it to a bankable feasibility study. That was in February 2019. And then from that point forward, it was about seeing if we could get the project funded. In order to build this project, we needed to raise about $120 million. That took about 1 year to put together. From the end of our feasibility study, February 2019, to when we broke ground was March 2020, so just over 1 year. Needless to say, we had the COVID pandemic, where Nigerian airspace was closed at the end of March 2020, but we persevered through that, and we managed to build the mine. It took 15 months to build, and we poured our first bar of gold in July 2021. And our new focus now is trying to extend the mine life to have a longer-term production.
The minister, in his response, pledged the support of the federal government for SROL, particularly because it promotes local content and positively impacts the host communities with developmental projects. I'm Samuel Odi, reporting for Global Television.
The World Bank has projected that growth will rebound in African economies from 2.6% in 2023 to 3.4% in 2024 and 3.8% in 2025. This is contained in a statement issued by the World Bank on its latest Africa's Pulse report. The report said increased private consumption and declining inflation were supporting an economic rebound in sub-Saharan Africa. It, however, said the recovery remained fragile due to uncertain global economic conditions, growing debt service obligations, frequent natural disasters, and escalating conflict and violence. The Association of Bureau de Change Operators of Nigeria has appealed to the Central Bank of Nigeria to adjust and lower its applicable exchange rate below the 1,251 naira per dollar it pegged for its members. APCON National President Aminu Gwadabe stated this in a letter to the CBN Director, Trade and Exchange Department. The appeal comes when the parallel market rate of 1,235 naira per dollar is lower than the BDC's applicable buying exchange rate of 1,251 naira per dollar, plus a 1.5% margin set by the CBN in its latest tranche of interventions. Gwadabe lamented that the naira's speedy recovery made CBN's selling rate to BDCs very expensive and difficult to offload to retail end buyers who were going to the undocumented forex operators for cheaper rates. Concerning this request and appeal by the Bureau de Change Operations of Nigeria, we'll have a conversation with an expert tomorrow to discuss further this appeal by the national president, Aminu Gwadabe. Make sure you keep a date with us for that conversation. As controversies continue to trail the federal government's recent removal of electricity subsidy for over 1.8 million customers categorized to be on Band A feeders, members of the organized private sector has insisted that the hike must be suspended for review. As such, plans are to meet President Bola Tinubu on the matter. The OPS, including the Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, and the Nigeria Employees Consultative Association disclosed this. Members of the OPS had earlier rejected the tariff hike and called for the suspension of the subsidy removal, saying this will be discussed at the planned meeting with President Bola Tinubu soon. The NEC announced the hike in the electricity bill at a press briefing in Abuja, adding that those affected will now pay a tariff of 225 naira per kilowatt hour, up from the previous rate of 68 naira per kilowatt hour, representing about 240% increase. The government declared that the decision took effect from Wednesday last week, but the Nigerian Labour Congress as well as the Trade Union Congress kicked against the hiked tariff for power users regardless of the band they belong to. And as you know, we had a conversation around this topic with David Arabo, who is an economic analyst. Now let's take a look at business reports filed by Kike Lomo-Kere.
Hello and welcome to Business Report on Prime News. The Central Bank of Nigeria has let go of another batch of 40 employees, mostly from its Development Finance Department, DFD, as part of its ongoing restructuring. This news comes on the heels of an earlier dismissal of 27 staff, bringing the total number affected to 67. The dismissal are likely connected to the CBN's refocus away from development finance interventions. Governor Olayemi Cardoso has previously voiced concern about such intervention, arguing that they take the bank outside its core function and can distort the economy. Among those let go in this latest round is Musa Zangbawa Bulus, an assistant director who headed the National Collateral Registry, NCR. The NCR is an initiative aimed at improving access to finance for small and medium-sized enterprises by leveraging movable assets as collateral. This dismissal reportedly targeted senior staff, with 22 from the DFD and 18 from the Medical and Procurement Service Department. The previous round included 8 directors, 10 deputy directors, 5 assistant directors, 2 principal managers, and 2 senior managers. The Central Bank of Nigeria has reviewed the exchange rate for Bureau de Change operators to 1,101 per dollar from 1,251 naira to a dollar as the Apex Bank dollar firepower grows. The Abuja-based Apex Bank planned to sell $15.88 million to 1,588 eligible BDCs. In a letter addressed to the President of the Association of Bureau de Change Operators of Nigeria, the CBN announced the sales of $10,000 to the BDC operators at an exchange rate of 1,101 naira per dollar. This development aimed to address retail market demand for eligible invisible transaction. The letter signed by W.J. Kanya on behalf of the Director of Trade and Exchange Department outlines the directive of BDCs to sell to acquire forex to eligible end users at a spread not exceeding 1.5% above the purchase price. This measure is intended to facilitate access to foreign exchange for legitimate transactions within the retail market. All eligible BDCs are instructed to commence payment of Naira deposit to designated CBN Naira deposit account numbers beginning from Monday, April 8, 2024. The Apex Bank further urged BDCs to submit confirmation of payment along with other necessary documentation for disbursement at the relevant CBN branches. This development underscores the CBN ongoing effort to regulate and stabilize the forex market, ensuring transparency and compliance with the Bureau de Change sector. NGX Group plc has announced its investment in the Ethiopian Security Exchange, leading a change of institutional investors to inject capital into the exchange operationalization. It noted that the NGX is largest foreign institutional investors in the ESX. According to the corporate disclosure made by NGX website, NGX Group invested alongside FSD Africa, a UK-based non-profitable Tech2, a UK-based non-profit financial institution, and Trade Development Bank Group, the financial arm of the Common Market for the Eastern and Southern Africa. Speaking on the investment, Umar Kwaranga, the chairman of NGX Group, says the partnership with ESX is a resounding affirmation of the unwavering dedication to promoting economic development, transparency, and exemplary corporate governance standards that foster an environment conducive to inclusive growth. The federal government of Nigeria has flagged off the distribution of approved 42,000 metric tons of grains to vulnerable Nigerians, beginning with Sokoto State. This is in line with the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's directive targeted at helping the less privileged access food amid the economic situation. This flag-off ceremony was announced by the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, via its ex-handle. NEMA disclosed that the relevant agencies are collaborating to ensure a seamless distribution to Nigerians. Kike Lomo Okeri, Global Television News.
Many thanks for staying with us, and that report was brought to us by Kike Lomo Okere, giving us highlights of what's happening in business. This is where we call it a wrap on Business Points today. Do make it a date with us tomorrow, same time. I'm Queen Agaba. Thank you for watching. See you again.